TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. Israel and Egypt seek to improve their bilateral relations as Jerusalem and Cairo work together to realize President Donald Trump's so-called 20-point plan. U.S. Vice President JD Vance notes that Washington will not force Israel to accept Turkish troops in the Gaza Strip. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei asserts that his country's nuclear capabilities are none of the United States' business. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hosted Egypt's intelligence director Hassan Mahmoud Rashad at his office in Jerusalem, during the course of which the two discussed efforts to advance U.S. President Donald Trump's 20-point plan for the Gaza Strip, Israeli-Egyptian bilateral relations, and the importance of strengthening the peace between the two countries, including other regional issues. The meeting was announced while U.S. Vice President JD Vance is visiting Israel, during the course of which the American-led Civilian Military Cooperation Center, or CMCC, was inaugurated in the presence of the American VP, President Trump's Special Mideast Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, alongside CENTCOM Commander Admiral Bradford Cooper.
We are 1 week into President Trump's historic peace plan in the Middle East, and things are going, frankly, better than I expected that they were. This is a very, very tough situation. You have two peoples, two enemies who have fought a very tough conflict against each other. You have a terrorist organization on one hand that murdered a lot of innocent people. You've got an Israeli army that was defending itself on the other, that has learned a lot over the past couple of years. And then, of course, you have an innocent civilian population in Gaza that's caught in the middle. But we're here at the Civilian Military Cooperation Center, which we are announcing the opening of. You have Israelis and Americans working hand in hand to try to begin the plan to rebuild Gaza, to implement a long-term peace, and to actually ensure that you have security forces on the ground in Gaza, not composed of Americans, who can keep the peace over the long term. So we've got a lot of work left to do. This is going to take a very, very long time, but I think Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Admiral Cooper behind me have done an incredible job.
Vice President Vance continued by lambasting Western media outlets for evidently rooting for failure of President Trump's 20-point plan, despite extensive efforts being put into the peace-oriented outline by multiple state actors from around the world.
I want to say that there is this weird attitude I've sensed in the American media and the Western media where there's almost this desire to root for failure, that every time something bad happens, that every time that there's an act of violence, there's this inclination to say, oh, this is the end of the ceasefire, this is the end of the peace plan. It's not the end. It is, in fact, exactly how this is going to have to happen when you have people who hate each other, who have been fighting against each other for a very long time. We are doing very well. We are in a very good place. We're going to have to keep working on it, but I think we have the team to do exactly that. So with all thanks to our partners, both in Israel but all across the Gulf Arab states, Indonesia, the Turks, we are doing an amazing thing here, and I'm particularly proud of the American troops working at the command center who are coordinating this effort and making it possible.
Vice President Vance further addressed the slow pace in which the Islamist Hamas terror organization takes its time to deliver the remaining hostages who've been murdered in Hamas captivity.
It is a focus of everybody here to get those bodies back home to their families so that they can have a proper burial. Now, that said, this is difficult. This is not going to happen overnight. Some of these hostages are buried under thousands of pounds of rubble. Some of the hostages, nobody even knows where they are. That doesn't mean we shouldn't work to get them, and that doesn't mean we don't have confidence that we will. It's just a reason to counsel in favor of a little bit of patience.
In relation to repeated statements by Hamas officials claiming that the terror group had not agreed to relinquish its weapons, Vice President Vance emphasized the following.
Our warning to Hamas is very straightforward. The terms of the 20-point plan that the president put out there is very clear. It's supported not just by Israel, but by all of our Gulf Arab friends. It's that Hamas has to disarm. It's that Hamas has to actually behave itself, and that Hamas while all the fighters can be given some sort of clemency, they're not going to be able to kill each other, and they're not going to be able to kill their fellow Palestinians. Now, again, that's going to take a little bit of time. We're talking about how to set up the security and humanitarian apparatus to put all this in place. But right now, where I stand, I feel confident that we're going to be in a place where this peace lasts, where it's durable. And if Hamas doesn't cooperate, then as the President of the United States has said, Hamas is going to be obliterated.
It is worth noting that while the United States accepted Hamas's narrative about difficulty locating some of the hostages who were murdered by Hamas terror operatives in captivity, Israel is convinced that the terror group actually does know exactly where they are.
Let it be known and understood, we are still demanding for the bodies of our deceased hostages to be returned by the terror organization Hamas. We know Hamas can return them, and we know that Hamas is aware of where they are located. As Hamas continues to make the excuse they cannot locate them, let's make something very clear. Hamas dragged our hostages into Gaza and either murdered them on October 7th or during captivity, with the sole exception of a soldier taken in 2014. No one misplaces people they kidnapped. Any suggestion that Hamas doesn't know where the hostages are is not just an excuse, it's part of their propaganda.
Meanwhile, in Egypt, the most senior official of the Islamist Hamas terror organization sought to alleviate pressure directed at his terror group, stressing that he believes the ceasefire will ultimately hold.
I say that this agreement will hold, firstly because we want it to hold and our will to adhere to it is strong. Secondly, the international will and the international gathering that took place in Egypt under the sponsorship of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the presence and sponsorship of President Trump in this international gathering. All these and the promises and guarantees that were made and that we heard, all of this reassures that this agreement will hold, Allah willing.
The terror official stopped short, however, from addressing Hamas's intentions vis-à-vis disarmament or the Islamist terror group's ongoing attacks against Palestinian civilians throughout the war-ridden enclave. In contrast, the Hamas official did confirm the terror group's intentions to return all of the deceased hostages, but claiming it would take time.
We and the Palestinian factions are serious and determined to hand over all the bodies as stated in the agreement, but we find it extremely difficult because these bodies, with the changing nature of the ground, some of them are underground and some of them are under large, tall buildings. This requires time and large equipment. But determination and will, Allah willing, will lead us to finish this issue completely.
Making a sharp turn to Iran, where the Islamic Republic's so-called supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, utilized an address to his followers for the purpose of attacking U.S. President Donald Trump, stressing that whether Iran has nuclear capabilities or not is none of the United States' business.
He boasts that we bombed Iran's nuclear industry and destroyed it. Well, keep dreaming about that, but what are you even doing? That if a country has a nuclear industry, you interfere and dictate what it should and shouldn't do? What business do you have in the world? What does it have to do with America whether Iran has nuclear capabilities and a nuclear industry or not? These interferences are illegitimate, improper, wrong, and arrogant.
Khamenei's arrogant address did not stop there, as he continued by asserting that his regime will not capitulate to international pressure.
He says, I'm a deal maker. I want to make a deal with Iran. A deal whose outcome is predetermined through arrogance is no deal. Iran will not submit under the weight of imposition and pressure.
The Islamic Republic Supreme Leader went on to address his terror regime's ballistic missile attacks on Israel, claiming that the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps and more surface-to-surface capabilities that it could utilize in a next war against Israel.
Our armed forces and military had these missiles and put them to use. They have more as well. If necessary, they will use them again at another time.
Khamenei, who sustained devastating losses against Israel on multiple fronts over the course of the past 2 years, went on to claim that the Ayatollah regime had in fact emerged victorious at the culmination of the 12-day war. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. If you're blessed by our updates, which are exclusively donation-based, please consider supporting TV7 with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I would like to encourage you to keep praying also for the speedy return of all deceased hostages from the Gaza Strip for proper burial here in Israel. Pray also for Christians and Druze currently besieged by the Damascus regime in southern Syria, and for the Christian community in Algeria. And last, but certainly not least, pray also for the peace of Jerusalem and the salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Essen, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, until our next update, Shalom from Jerusalem.